I was asked the question in Instagram. Somebody DM'd me, said, do you think this is going to hurt housing? Talking about the war. Everyone's worried about like the gas prices and housing and stock market. And there's people over there dying. So that, but
yeah, it kind of seems like the wrong focus a bit.
Yeah.
Like, hey man, am I going to get a better mortgage rate? Why are you asking me this right now?
But I do understand, people just have questions, right? And, I think we'll talk about a little bit of that, the impact on what we see. But obviously it's super traumatic. So it's, I want to state that first. This is, we're not being impacted here in the US, but a lot of people know people, or, a lot of people are being impacted. Obviously it's totally craziness.
Yeah. If you woke up and, you're here and you started making like World War III jokes, you're kind of the worst kind of person. Yeah. Like, this is not really, so I think to throw that out there, not the forum for that, and definitely not what's going to happen here. That's for sure.
No, but we do talk about the economy. And so we'll get into some of those, questions that people have. My initial reaction to the person asking me about housing here in America was no. There's, other things that we've talked about on the show that are impacting housing coming up. And, right now, the market is still going up, and inventory and interest rates would be the impact that I would see where house prices start going down. I do see that coming at some point in the future. There's not going to be any immediate impact on housing. Actually, it looks like, the 10-year dropped a little bit this week. So if anything, the interest rate there's going to be volatility around the interest rate. The interest rate may go down a little bit in the short term for 30-year fixed mortgages. So that would certainly not hurt. I was surprised, Pat, that your world stocks seem to do pretty good. Maybe all this kind of stuff's priced in, but I don't know, did way better than I would have anticipated.
Yeah, I think some of it has to. So we've talked about this on more than one occasion. We talked about it in March of 2020, which seems so long ago now, but 2 years ago at this point. And the biggest impact on things, especially when it's overseas on the market, is really uncertainty, right? So like the whole time of this posturing and is it going to happen? What's going to happen? Are they going to do it? What scale are they going to do it? That is way more unnerving for a stock market than when something happens, almost irrelevant of the scale of the event, right? What happened was horrendous and is ongoing and is terrible. But it happened, and now we understand what's going on, what they are. And the markets have a chance to react now, because now they can do the math on, all right, so if we put economic sanctions on, and then that's going to impact, their ability to trade, and if they shut off oil supplies, it's going to impact Western Europe, and they can start to do the math on those things. And what they did in the first couple of days, obviously, as we saw from the low, the day of the attack was down 859 points at the bottom of the market that day, and we finished up 96 points. It's basically a 1,000-point swing in the course of 9:30 to 4. And then we finished up 850 points, the best day since November of 2020, on Friday.
Yeah, I saw that. The best day since the end of
November
2020, which was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's understanding, I think we were. So two things, right? Number one, the U.S. was obviously, and the rest of NATO and the UN has been threatening sanctions. The first round of sanctions hasn't been nearly as traumatic and as impactful as they could be, right? We didn't really go full loaded for bear, which means that there's still room to run and try to help offset a little more. If you watch anything that's happening, the Ukrainian president was, the U.S. offered to airlift him and his cabinet and his family. And he said, I don't need a ride. He goes, I need ammunition. Because he has no plans on leaving, right? So that's a whole different factor, trying to understand kind of what's going to happen if there's a shift in power in the Ukraine. That's going to have a different impact. But right now, economically, right, which is unfortunately how the market has to look at it, it doesn't look at the people, it looks at the math behind it. And energy prices, you saw gas prices spike, right? On Thursday, oil jumped over $100 a barrel. We haven't seen that in a while. California is averaging $5 a gallon already, which we talked about, I think, the week before. That was not possibly going to happen. And Europe's going to struggle a little bit with energy supplies. And that's really what economically is having a big impact. And we haven't thrown them out of SWIFT yet, the Russians. So SWIFT is a program. It's like like the Snapchat of banking, where it's a secure end-to-end system, not to actually move money, but to say, hey, Byron, I need, Bank of Ukraine needs $100 million and those kind of things. And we haven't removed them from that system yet. So when we do that, the problem is it's like you take all of Europe out of it at that point, and that's going to have problems for France, Germany, Spain, and the rest of Europe. So there's definitely a lot more moving parts.
They get removed if
it's kind of basically the system kind of shuts down. It's not really like you're like removing a profile. You're kind of basically locking out an entire section, and what happens is there's fallout from that. And it's been around for years, and they send something like 11,000 messages a day get transmitted through Swift across Europe and the United States. That's a big problem if we have to shut that system down, right? Imagine like if your phone didn't send text messages anymore.
Oh, game over.
Like problem. Yeah, real problem. And that's one of the things, right? If we start to do that, there's more fallout. But because all of those things still exist, the first day's reaction was shock. I mean, we talked about that 100 times in different scenarios, right? The first 2 to 3 days or something. I mean, how many headlines have we talked about on the show in the last 5 years? There's always a headline scare somewhere.
Yeah.
But once you start to look at, a little more of it, and again, I'm not trying to, dehumanize it, because if you're living anywhere over there, if you have family over there, I can't imagine how scary this is. But the economy, and the markets, that's not what they pay attention to. Not yet. Right. So, it was definitely a weird 48 hours in the market to end the week.
We've got a poll about every state's biggest stressor, according to Matt Surley, who does a bunch of these Instagram polls with his following, large following, so big sample sizes. This was obviously done before all of this nonsense happened in the last week. So this is the stressors from a few weeks ago.
This was the 15th, the day after Valentine's Day.
Yeah, February 5th. As of February 15th, maybe he would include a different category. But here's the categories for every state's biggest stressor. And Connecticut's will shock you. The stressors are work, money, COVID/COVID implications. So COVID and or COVID implications is a category. Family, relationships, and weather. Okay, so those are the 6 categories: work, money, COVID/COVID implications, family, relationships, and weather. So
I gotta say, one of the COVID states shocks me, by the way. That one of the states that has COVID listed.
Yeah.
It's fairly large and fairly yellow on this visual.
And it's like, I didn't think they were worried about it at all.
I was unaware that most of them acknowledged that it existed, to be totally fair. And I was like, wow, all right, not the concern. I don't know what the concern would have been in my mind. Maybe like I don't know, like wild buffalo attacks. I don't really know what I thought would have been the correct concern there, but nonetheless.
Well, that was Texas. So Texas was one of only 5 states, according to this survey, that had COVID/COVID implications as the state's biggest stressor.
I do need to clarify, by the way, because this is important for all of our listeners, especially ones that have listened for a while. While we do enjoy Matt Shirley a lot, because we do use this, obviously, number one, he's not like, he's an Instagram journalist kind of, it's more fun. It's designed to be fun, right? So first of all, it's fun, relax, everybody take a deep breath. And number two, the entire study is completely invalid because it includes DC.
As always, any study that includes Washington, D.C. in the states, the list of states, is immediately null and void. But I do think, because this was an Instagram poll, so people from
this is real. These are real answers, I think, more so than
answers from Instagram, obviously. But I just thought Connecticut shocked us. The states that, or the category that had the most states filled in is the work category. So Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, Alabama, they're all in on work. Tennessee, Maine, Vermont.
Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, and then Rhode Island.
New York, Rhode Island, Pennsylvania. Lots of states were under the work category as their biggest stressor. So that makes sense. Last couple of years, works. If you can't work from home and you can't work, that could be a big stress. A lot of people, 2020, lost their job. So I could see that one.
Yeah, it works different for people now, even if they stayed working that last 2 years, right? Like work, maybe expectation changed. I'm okay with work. I like work.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, that makes sense. Work being the biggest category selected. Weather was only selected by a few, five states.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair though, it's, Washington, Montana, North Dakota, Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin. Like, yeah, okay. I would worry about the weather in those states too.
They're all bordering Canada, so I totally get it. So there you go. Those are three of the categories: COVID, work, weather. Family was only in 2 states, it looks like. So not a lot of stress about family.
Yeah. Only one for relationships.
One for relationships.
And of all states. Because the slogan on all the t-shirts, Virginia's for lovers.
Virginia's for lovers, but they are stressed about their relationships. Maybe there's just so many lovers in Virginia that they're always thinking about it, Pat.
Too much pressure.
They're stressed out about it.
Yeah, put the relationships on a pedestal. It's not good.
So that leaves Connecticut in one of the states that is stressed about money. Maybe you weren't shocked about it, because I guess you could think about this 2 different ways, Pat. I was shocked that Connecticut's biggest stress is money.
I don't know if we're raising our hands.
I wasn't introduced as part of the
Jill's
show, but
lurking on the show here. Welcome Jill back to the radio show. Go ahead, Jill.
I feel like just from your radio show alone is what increased the ranking on money in Connecticut on this poll. Your show for the past 4 years, I just brought it up at the beginning, trying to figure out a way to make Connecticut more money and not have to tax.
Yeah. All right. So it makes sense in that point. But Connecticut per person is one of the highest. It's one of the highest 2 or 3, if not the highest per person income. But I guess
it's a little dated, because I looked at this somebody asked me a question about this, so I ended up actually looking at this. Connecticut, to be in the top 1% earners in Connecticut, the average income is the minimum income to be in the top 1% is $827,194. That's what puts you in the 1% earners in Connecticut. That's the highest in the country. Mm-hmm. So that's the highest benchmark to get there. The average income, and this was as of 21, of the top 1% is north of 3 million, also the highest in the country. And the average income of all tax filers is $113,570, also the highest in the entire country.
But there is, and I think Ray Dalio talks about this a lot, there's a wide gap between the haves and the have-nots in Connecticut. So Connecticut's one of those states. So I could see now, thinking it through, not just going off a reaction, that this makes a lot of sense, because of, if you are in the have-not category in Connecticut, I could definitely see you hitting the money. California, by the way, same. California is one of the states that selected money. Another extremely high taxed state. Jersey in on the money. So it's starting to make more sense to me now.
And then just to throw things in, just for fun, apparently Mississippians are also very concerned about money, because that's down there. While everybody else is worried about work around them, Mississippi is really concerned about the money situation. So is New Mexico and Oklahoma.
Yeah, Alaska too. Alaska and Hawaii.
Well, I mean, that, to be fair, Alaska and Hawaii.
Sense, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just so expensive. I mean, and not because of taxes, just because everything has to be flown in from everywhere else. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of nuts.
In Alaska, there's not a lot of population to sell product to, whatever you're doing.
Very true. I looked really quick because I was curious. I didn't see the median, but so just to give you some sense, the difference from the 1% in Connecticut to the 5%, just to still be in the top 5%, goes from 897 to 312,000. So that gap, that top 1%, I mean, that's such a high threshold. And I think the median, I thought, was somewhere in the 40s, if I remember correctly.
I was just focused on that. I think those top line numbers of Connecticut being at the top of income. But when you think about the entire state, the whole landscape, how much we're being taxed in Connecticut, makes a lot of sense that this is one of the, Massachusetts as well, by the way, is on this list for money being the biggest stressor. So, and I bet you there'd be more states that would be in this category, money, at some point this year as we continue to go through all this volatility.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean,
and inflation.
Yeah, exactly. As things start to just cost, more and more. I mean, we talked about this before, right? Wages have increased in 21 over 2020 faster than they had in the previous 40 years, but then inflation came back and smacked all that back down again.